to see great, trusted professionals give their insight, give their input, and just have general fun. We know how important fun is on this show. Remember this show, and nobody has more fun than Open Tax Advocates, because they just.com. It's going to be your hub to fight the IRS. Now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I wanted to introduce our host with the most, Attorney Stephen Leahy.
Well, I'm glad that you introduced me, but we should first tell the folks who's our guest today, right?
That's your job.
Okay.
I can only do so much.
Matthew, with only one T.
How about it?
I noticed that. It's Kerbis, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And I should have got that bit, but Mathew Kerbis, thanks so much for joining us here today. I had a chance to meet you the other night at a Chamber of Commerce event, and I have heard of him before. And so we're going to get to know Mathew and find out about him. Let's start there. Tell me about yourself. Where are you from?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Mathew Kerbis. I'm the subscription attorney. I can't tell you how many times I say that in a day and a week.
That's good.
I'm a true solo practice attorney, and people subscribe for legal advice. But I'm a general practice transactional attorney. For any lawyers out there, I'm like fractional general counsel for small business owners, freelancers, and everyday people. And while I actually enjoyed tax law in law school, I went to DePaul in Chicago. Professor Ashley.
Okay, so let's start there.
Okay.
Tell me about where you're from.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from the area. I grew up in Buffalo Grove, mostly. Born in Illinois, moved to Indiana for a few years. My dad followed a job out there, came back here, grew up here, went to Stevenson High School. Then went to Indiana University for undergrad.
And was that where you always wanted to go? Was that first choice?
No, I lived in Indiana for a few years in my early youth. It's where my little brother was born. And so, I don't know, I just figured, let's apply there and see. I was undecided. I ended up a philosophy major. So I couldn't exactly sell philosophy, right? Except you kind of can as an attorney.
Well, it is philosophy. I like the movie The Cutters.
Oh, yeah, of course. About Little 500, yeah. Breaking Away.
That Breaking Away.
Yeah,
that's right,
Breaking Away. Yeah, that's the movie, yeah.
The Cutters.
Yeah.
I remember I watched it over and over. I'm not a movie guy either. I really am not. So you went to Stevenson High School out here.
Yeah.
Now, you said you were a philosophy major. Did you always want to be an attorney? Was that something? Was your dad an attorney?
No. So my dad is in the insurance business, life and health. I learned some good lines from him, though. Kerbis service. There's not a lot of things that rhyme with Kerbis, but service is close enough.
That's good.
Orange.
Actually, I come from a long line of salespeople. And so when I started my own practice, one of the things is you got to sell your legal services. So thankfully, I've got sales in my blood going back a few generations. So.
I think that, I interview a lot of solos or a small firm, and like every other business owner, your real job is selling.
Yeah,
that's your real job. Marketing, I call it marketing. I don't sell. I market.
Yeah, and
to market.
Stop.
You were thinking that, weren't you, Jim?
To market, to buy a fat pig.
I knew you were thinking that. I known the kid for a long time,
I
get out of there. So now, when you went to Indiana, did you come right back and go to law school?
So I did something that you don't hear of a lot these days, but I actually graduated a semester early. And I didn't even have a lot of AP credits going in. If I didn't know I wanted to be a lawyer going in, which I did not, but I quickly discovered that, well, what I did is I read the whole admissions book and requirements for graduation within the first week of attending college while I was trying to figure out what my major should be, and I learned IU does this thing called double or triple counting, where you could take one class that could count towards multiple requirements for graduation. So I basically gamed the system, found a way to graduate early. In hindsight, probably should have majored in econ, minored in philosophy. But that's another story. And so I graduated a semester early, looked around for ways to work in or around law firms. Always knew I wanted to go to law school, and I was already applying.
You already know.
Well, at that point in time when I graduated early, right? So I figured it out within the first 3 weeks of college. This is going to be the right path for me.
Okay.
And then in that time, I actually just worked as a shift supervisor at Starbucks in between undergrad and law school. I'd already applied, and then I quickly got accepted to some law schools. But I still use that skill I learned at Starbucks to this day because my wife, she loves cappuccino, so I make her a cappuccino every single morning.
Is that right?
I mean, and myself, yeah. We're actually more on a dirty chai latte tick right now.
Okay.
But
these are things I know nothing about. I really don't. I know nothing about it. You know, when I go to Starbucks, I get this.
You are a dirty chai latte guy.
I get this look like I'm like, what would you like? They ask me. I say, coffee.
He always asks me.
What kind of coffee would you like? Black. I really don't. I think I've been in a Starbucks like 2 times or 3 times.
I didn't even drink coffee till I worked at Starbucks. Now they did not know this.
He always gets a unicorn frappe.
Is there such a thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. But
Just shut up.
But I'll tell you what, I did work at a movie theater when I was 16. But other than that, that was really just for a summer. It was great to work in like retail services industry and get that kind of experience. In addition to having a happy wife, happy life every morning with her nice cappuccino, and then from there I went to DePaul, where I thought I wanted to defend doctors because I had a lot of friends going to medical school.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Stevenson's a good school. I knew a lot of people who went to college and went to medical school. So I was thinking, they'll be my clients. I had no clue. Like, it's through insurance and malpractice insurance, and it's the insurance companies. So, like, I had no idea, right? But I just thought I wanted to follow that path and, you know, be a traditional lawyer, be associate, become partner, do that whole thing. And so going solo wasn't even something I really considered until years into practice. But I did take tax law, loved it, and thought maybe I had a future in that. But at the end of the day, I never ended up pursuing that route. I don't do anything with taxes.
I love to ask attorneys this question. What was your first job out of law school?
Oh, yeah. So
No, besides Starbucks.
Yeah. Well, out of law school.
Out of law school, that's right.
Yeah, so out of law school, I was technically still a law clerk at a small boutique practice in Chicago, though I was working there a little bit after graduation, but then I had to study for the bar, take the bar, and all that. Well, during that process, I did get a job working as one of 2 new attorneys coming in for a solo practitioner who was bringing on his first 2 associates doing foreclosure defense work. So who's
this now?
His name is Mathew Kerbis.
Okay.
I don't know if he's still practicing.
I did a lot of foreclosure defense back in the day. 2008, 2009, 2013. I did a lot of foreclosure defense downtown. Yeah. So I knew a lot of it. But like as attorneys, I always know the guys on the other side, not guys that do my work. Although I'd see them in court, we didn't really talk. Right? So I'd always know the creditors' attorneys or the bank's attorneys. Had a couple of them on the show, actually, because we became very good friends. Because you work with them.
Yeah. You see them all the time. Yeah. There's a couple who I'll still occasionally keep in touch with, the bank's attorneys.
Yeah.
And I forget the firm names, but if you said some of them, I might say,
you had Friedman and Salmo. You had the big one, Cadillus and Associates.
Oh, sure, Cadillus. I'm sure there's still
one
around.
here out in Bannockburn was Fisher and Shapiro, but now they've changed their name into something else.
So they've been acquired, or
so I'm still doing. I still do some foreclosure defense. Yeah. There's not a lot of it. Mm-hmm. If someone calls me and asks me, I don't seek it. Mm-hmm. But when you have clients and you've established a relationship with them and they turn to you for help, I'm going to help them.
Right. You'll appreciate this foreclosure defense story that I have. I left that firm and went to my next firm where I learned within like a year and a half everything you possibly can about foreclosure defense, because there's not like a lot.
There's like 7 cases in the
right. So I learned everything in a year and a half. So I actually left that firm to go to another firm that they did more real estate transactions and bankruptcy, but because of everything happening with people filing for bankruptcy because their house was in foreclosure and it went to sale, and maybe they were, the bank was going after them for the difference. So then they realized they could have a more robust foreclosure defense practice. Now they had a growing one, but they needed somebody who knew everything. So with only a year and a half, maybe close to 2 years out of law school, I was hired on at that firm to just take over and be the main attorney for that foreclosure defense practice. But they had some other civil litigation matters. So in one of these hearings for one of these other small civil litigation matters, there was a 214-01 petition, I think is what it was. I haven't done litigation for a few years now. And we did those all the time in foreclosure defense. But this other attorney that on the other side of that transaction, or on that dispute, had no idea how to properly do a 214-01 petition. And I came in with all the research, and I just laid it down, and the judge was like, well, counsel, I don't know who this attorney is, but according to what he's saying, I can't grant your 214-01 petition, so I'm not going to. And then off the record, he said, who are you? Like, where did you come from? Because I was so ready to go on this. I said, I used to do foreclosure defense work. It's mostly what I'm doing now. He's like, foreclosure defense? What's the defense? And it never dawned on me before that it's civil procedure. It's the rules of civil procedure.
I agree, but again, I did a lot of this myself, and I've had many judges tell me there's only one real defense. I made the payments.
Oh, yeah.
And so a lot of attorneys would bring up motion after motion after motion after motion, and the judges got so full of it because they see the same motions, and they're kind of frivolous in the sense that you're not going to win this. The judge has already told you he doesn't go down that road,
right?
And so but you keep going down that road, and it kind of gets in the way of what you're. So in the end, what you're trying to do, and you know this, right?
Yeah.
So you're trying to get a modification.
Now,
when I first started doing foreclosure defense, actually I was helping people with bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And so someone came to me and they had a foreclosure. The only modification I ever saw was a woman who had cancer, and they took it, put it at the end, and let her start making payments again, but only because she had cancer. And then, of course, modifications became the norm.
Right.
And now they're pretty much the norm.
Right.
They still are.
Right. And that's what I try to do, though. Even in my practice today, I always tell my clients, sure, you could take this thing to court, but at the end of the day, you're just going to end up settling. Let's try to figure out what's going to make nobody happy, but everyone's willing to agree to now to avoid that dispute.
Save some money.
Yeah.
People, and you've probably heard this, right? Is people say, it's about the principal. And I said, well, here's what the principal's going to cost. Oh, maybe I'm not as principled as I thought it was.
Yeah. And sometimes it's about time, too.
Yeah. I'm going to take this to the ends of the earth. Well, it's going to take 5-10 years, and you're going to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. And you're going to live it. Yeah. Right, because you can't let it go.
Right.
Let it go.
Right.
Move on.
That's some of the best advice people could get.
Move on.
Now, Attorney Kerbis, again, you're a subscription attorney, so again, just kind of, and you can go to subscriptionattorney.com if you're looking for you're running your own business, you're an entrepreneur, you're out there, and you want to have some legal counsel on hand. It's a great idea, but when people give you the question, and I want to kind of pick your brain on this. What's your answer when people go, "Do I really need an attorney? Do I really need a lawyer? I just run this little side hustle. Do I really need an attorney?"
Yeah, it's a great question, and I hear stuff like that all the time. And what I like to say to something like that is, well, it really depends on the context, but generally speaking, I say, law is the operating system of society, and we're living in it. But we don't do a really good job as a society teaching people about the law. And so you can wait until you have the burst pipe equivalent of a legal problem, and most lawyers are going to be waiting there to charge you an arm and a leg to come in and fix your burst legal pipe. What I do is I come in and I do a pipe inspection to make sure that if there's any leaky pipes, that we fix that. And so I help my clients avoid legal problems.
As you say, it's easier to fix the leak than to fix the bust pipe.
And it's cheaper. And so that's, and since it's the operating system of society, it's always happening. Everything we do, this conversation, there's laws that apply to what's happening right here. And people just don't think about it. So you don't have to worry about that. If you're a business owner, there's a lot of legal stuff going on. You have employees, you have compliance, you have a lot, and you're dealing with it as the business owner. So it's an easier pitch for that. Because
or not dealing with it.
Or not dealing with it. So offload that to me so you can get back to what you enjoy in your life or your business. That tends to be my other explanations. Yeah, so don't worry about that stuff. That's why you subscribe, because it's always happening at all times. But you don't need someone to
talk. You need someone to call.
Right.
Otherwise, you're always searching who do I talk to?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that if you can't, I'm sure you have a list of networking that you could say, hey, maybe you should call this guy.
Right.
That's what I try to do, is always have a network, which is one reason why we have this show, is to build that network so when people need something, I know that's why we call it the Trust Radio Network, so we can that people you can trust, because it's not easy to attorney-client relationship is a very important relationship, and so to me, finding the right people for my clients who need something that I can't help them with is really important. Now I tell you this: I have two sons, and I have one son just recently graduated from law school.
Congratulations.
And I have another that's in his third year in law school. Mm-hmm. So I always like to ask attorneys, what kind of advice would you have to them?
Learn how to use these legal-specific generative AI tools.
Oh,
yeah, which is like very current advice. I have other advice. That's just like broader industry-specific advice. Mm-hmm. But like right now, because I will guest lecture at law schools, it's all about learn how to use these tools. Because if you do learn how to use these tools, you will be more valuable to law firms that are looking for attorneys who have that expertise. I'm right now hiring my first legal extern. So I got the domain to legalextern.com naturally. That's what you do when you make a first hire, right? You get the domain. So I'm still, and it's going to be a semester to semester thing. So I'm always going to try to have a new extern. And the reason I went for that, as opposed to looking to make my first like freelance lawyer, 1099 hire, is because I need somebody who's ready to go with Gen AI. And I don't expect other lawyers to necessarily be there, but I know some law professors teaching it to law students. Mm-hmm. And so that is my advice. If I'm looking for that, other lawyers are going to be looking for that too. And lawyers don't want to have to learn a whole new piece of technology if they don't have to. And seasoned practitioners who have a lot of clients don't need to, but they could benefit from it if that's a tool in your toolbox that you could bring as a practicing attorney.
Well, that's good advice. And I have to say that most attorneys are not really technologically, they're just not.
Yeah.
And technology. Many would still be using WordPerfect.
I just got my first WordPerfect document sent to me from another attorney.
Because that was the norm, right? That's what every attorney used before Windows. Everybody had WordPerfect, and that's what they learned, and so they didn't want to learn anything else.
Right.
So they still use that. I have an IT degree. I have a Master of Law, LLM, in information technology law.
Wow.
Yeah, so to me, technology is a necessity, right? It helps. Yeah. It does really help attorneys process. Everybody's afraid. You hear these, and you've heard these horror stories. I think it was Michael Cohen, right?
That was one of them.
Who wrote a brief, and the brief cited false cases because he just took it right off of ChatGPT and put it in, which is malpractice.
Yeah. It's like giving an assignment. When you use Gen AI, because I do teach some CLEs on this, when you're using Gen AI, it's just like you're working with another person. Mm-hmm. It's not exactly that. I don't think AI is sentient, right? But if you're giving an assignment to an associate or a staff person, you're going to review that work when you get it back. You're not just going to blindly accept it, right? And in the same way that you'd ask them to do something for you, that's at a base level how you would prompt the AI to do the thing for you. But instead of it taking hours and days, it takes seconds and minutes. Yeah. And so that's another reason, since I'm not billing by the hour, the sooner I could get the work done effectively and efficiently, the better.
Absolutely true. And I'm right on board with you. And I use ChatGPT almost every day for a variety of reasons. A lot of marketing. I use it for for that.
I'm still blown away how a lot of attorneys use AI and they'll just copy and write. They'll just be like, write this summary, give it to the judge. It really blows my mind.
I agree with that. But that again, as you say, that's like hiring somebody and not checking their work and saying, because as an attorney, right, you sign your name at the bottom. That's your work. You hired someone to do it for you, but it's still your work.
Yeah. At my most recent count, there are over 80 tools, at least that I'm aware of, that lawyers can potentially use in their practice when it comes to Gen AI, and most of those are legal specific, right? There's like a dozen or so that are like ChatGPT, Claude, all these other ones, right? Even Adobe now has an AI assistant in there if you're a paying Adobe subscriber. So what I recommend is that the lawyers use the legal AI tools because they have taken into account and they're built for privacy, security, maintaining confidentiality, right? Like I would never put like client things into ChatGPT. Not all lawyers know that. But with these legal AI tools that are specifically designed for use by lawyers, that stuff is not training underlying models, it's much safer to use these things. And just like when you hire a new employee, the more you work with them, the more they understand you understand them, and it's easier to get better results. Same thing with AI. So the more you use these AI tools, the legal ones in particular, you're gonna have to pay for them. They're not free.
All of them are.
But
all of them are like that. It's like
Lapel. I have to tell him sometimes.
upside
Straighten
down.
that out, my man. Straighten that tie.
Gen AI is never going to be able to do that, so we're not. It's not saying everybody.
it
See,
might.
I'm not replaceable yet.
Yeah.
So again, I agree with you 100%. But it's a tool that you can fight it and say it's not. Some people are afraid of it, but it's a tool that's gonna be used. And I hear this. My argument's always: do you use spell check? Do you use Grammarly?
Right.
If you use Word, it automatically recommends if you use the wrong grammar. That's not wrong.
Right.
It actually is helpful.
Yeah.
And so AI is very the same, as you point out, same thing. You just use it to aid you to produce something faster.
That's it. That's it. Still review it.
Yeah.
Still review it.
Writing an article. Again, you tell it what you want it to say. And you kind of captures your ideas, and then you can hone it to what you want it to be. I think it's a great tool, and I sometimes surprised that people are afraid of it.
I was just watching a movie. It was kind of amazing because it was a little bit dated of a movie, but they were talking about AI and the purpose of, the AI is helping everybody out, and all of a sudden it goes into the defense systems, and then all of a sudden everybody dies. It's really what you're...
We've seen Terminator.
Oh, okay, that's what it's called. Okay, all right.
Okay. So I wanted to ask about advice, and I think that's very good advice for my kids. So I could tell you, I like the way you said, that you studied the rules to determine how to get out of school earlier.
Right. How about that, huh?
That is something. So I'll tell you this.
Okay.
Not both my kids finished in 2 years.
Hey. Now, did they have college credit coming from high
They
school?
took some.
Yeah.
They took some, but they same way they find out what the rules are, and use them to your advantage.
Yeah.
And it's just that's a skill. That's as a lawyer, it's very useful, right? Find out what the rules are and how can they work for my advantage.
Right, like I said, I liked tax law, right? Because that's kind of you got to know the tax code. You got to figure out how could you be most efficient for your clients. I've never practiced tax law, right? But it's a similar sort of a mindset, right? If you got to know the rules, be familiar with the code, and how to maximize efficiency and yield the best outcome for you or your client, right?
So in your practice now, do you have a lot of interactions with other attorneys or no?
I do, because a lot of these are. In particular for the business matters, there are attorneys representing the businesses on the other side of the transaction, right? I mean, the market's slow right now, but normally I'm practicing a fair amount of real estate law. So
do you do closings?
Yeah, I do closings, buyer seller side. I mean, I've done commercial leases haven't slowed down. So I'm still helping clients with commercial leases, mostly on the tenant side these days. Though one of my tenants really wants to become a commercial landlord and just buy the whole space. He's doing very well, and buy the whole strip mall and become the landlord there. So I anticipate in a few years helping him out with being a commercial landlord too. But real estate. So sometimes parties don't have an attorney representing them. Like I will represent landlords to help settle disputes with tenants who are behind. This is more on the residential side now, and so usually they don't have a lawyer, and there's usually not a reason that they're stopped paying their rent except for their own financial troubles. And I explain to my clients how, we take this to court, maybe they get a lawyer, maybe they don't, all the things we just talked about previously. And I'm like, let's get them on a payment plan that they could actually pay, because some landlords are like, I want it all tomorrow and then back on the plan.
I always tell people, I could demand anything, but if you can't pay it, what good is it? So you got to say, well, what can you do? And then I can make a reasonable determination whether that's something I want to accept.
Right.
Better do you get something than nothing.
Right. So to be fair to my client, even if the other party isn't represented by an attorney, it's still probably in the best interest of my client long term that that we sort of treat them still accordingly, and we try to give them respect even if there's no other attorney on that side.
Agreed. And one reason why I wanted to ask you that question, because I want to know, what do you think makes a good lawyer?
Well, lawyers love to talk. but I'd say being a good listener makes the best lawyer.
I agree with that.
The lawyers who could actually keep their mouth shut for a little bit and listen, which is hard sometimes.
No, I agree.
We've got all these cicadas flying around right now, and my neighbor he said, a cicada flew into my mouth and bounced off, and he said, "Wow, it's one of those rare moments that you were actually listening." It's a good thing.
It's kind of goes back to sales, right?
Yeah.
What's a good salesman? A good salesman is a listener.
Right.
They listen to what you're saying, and then try and what you need, and figuring out how to make it for you, right? Everything is about the client. At least that's what I think.
Yeah, I think it's a lot harder, though, for lawyers to sometimes say, like, I don't know the answer to your question yet. Lawyers want to say, like, I know or pretend. Yeah. And I mean, look, I've been practicing law for 10 years, so I've come to know a lot off the top of my head, but I need to do some research sometimes.
You know a lot in the areas that you've worked.
Yeah.
Right? But the law is, as you pointed out, it's such a vast area that no one can know it all. No one can. But a good lawyer also is a good researcher, right? Could find out.
Right. And what's nice about, I keep going back to Gen AI, is these tools have analyzed, the legal ones have analyzed all federal and state laws and cases, and so they have it in their corpus. And legal research always did, but now it's even easier to quickly say, well, just hang on with me if I'm on a Zoom with my client. Let's see what the legal AI has to say about it first, so we could give you some directional advice, but not conclusive advice yet.
Yeah.
And so that's a nice little added service to be like, look, I don't know. Let's see what the legal tools that I'm paying for, that I know how to interface with better than anyone. Because sure, like Joe Schmo, Jane Schmo off the street could go subscribe to Paxton, which is what I'm using. They're not going to know how to interface with it like a lawyer knows how to interface with it. We're not going anywhere. Subject matter experts are necessary for interfacing with the AI for their particular industry. So I do even think that, at least for my clients, that most of my clients have never hired a lawyer before. Now the business clients, some of them have, and they don't like billable hours, so they love me because it's predictable pricing. But most of them haven't hired lawyers before because I'm trying to serve the latent legal market. Clients who need pricing certainty when they hire somebody, not, well, it's going to take X amount of hours at a certain billable rate, and we'll see how long it takes. So, I just try to level with them. I try to not wear a suit very often, and so that's sort of my approach to it. And I've, it's been 2 years and about 3 to 4 months, but I've found some really good success doing that. So for some lawyers, you want to wear a suit, and I loved wearing a suit, don't get me wrong. I was not one of those lawyers who's like, I'm so glad I don't have to wear a suit anymore. No, I still love getting dressed up and wearing a suit. But there are there's not just one way to practice law, would be my other advice, to go back to your earlier question. There are some tried and true methods, but it's okay to do things a little bit differently because there's clients for every type of lawyer.
I agree with that. I have to, because I don't wear a suit anymore. And you say, "What? Aren't you?" No, I have slacks and a jacket on now. And you laugh. But when I had my office downtown, I wore a suit every day.
Yeah.
So this is to me I'm relaxed. I'm a suburban lawyer.
When we used to do the radio show, it was funny because our guests would come in, they'd look and be like, "Whoa, I didn't realize we're wearing suits here today." It's like. And I used to dress pretty right for the show because we had 2 shows, the Trust Radio Network.
Yes.
And also to the IRS Radio Hour. But I'd dress up fine. I'd wear glasses and stuff. Things like, okay, whatever. Who cares? It's the radio. Then you start watching the replays of the videos. You're like,
maybe I should put something on.
Maybe just a little.
So I do a lot of radio. I do WGN with my friend David Hochberg. And they
love the shout out to my
yes, boy. The whole crowd there always laughs at me because I go to the radio station. I always have a tie on, always do. To me, I don't know why that is, but that's I'm always an attorney, so that's what makes me an attorney. Yeah. But everybody, as you say, everybody's different. It does, and nowadays less and less attorneys are wearing a tie.
When I was going to court every day, I was in a suit and tie every day.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I liked it. And my in-laws got me some really nice ties. And so those are really the only ties I wear anymore when I do suit up.
So again, I see that you do a lot of public speaking. You do these quite often. Attorney Kerbis. You just have a vast array of just legal advice and well, I can't really say advice because you can't get. Is that right? Am I wrong on that? Is that what Attorney Stephen Leahy said? You can't give legal advice over the radio.
You should not.
Legal information.
There you go. I'm sorry, I'm not an attorney, so I can make that mistake, right? So I guess I'm your ideal. I'd be your ideal guy, right? I have you on subscription. I'm coming. I'm giving you a call. Did I say that correctly? Well, what is your ideal client?
So I have 3 buckets, and I'm very transparent. Everything's on my website. All my pricing is on my website. My engagement agreement on my website, because like you said, I do a lot of speaking, and I want to encourage more lawyers utilize subscription and whatever is the best way for them. So I have a lot of free material out there too, and so the 3 buckets are small business owners, businesses that they could be large, but they, at least for their industry or what they're doing, it doesn't make sense for them to have a full-time in-house attorney. So I would be their fractional general counsel. Then the solopreneurs and the freelancers are the other bucket. So hustlers, side hustlers, people who work for themselves, like me. And then just everyday people for their everyday legal needs. And really, as far as practice areas, I say mile wide, inches deep law. And on my website, it has different things that I do specifically, if that's what you're looking for. But when people are doing legal problem avoidance, their problems only get inches deep. But if I can't avoid litigation for a client, or like I don't handle tax at all, and they have a tax matter, that's when I act as like a general counsel does for a company and hires outside counsel. I advise them on, you sort of said something like this earlier, I'll call a guy or two, or I mean a lot of times these days it's a gal who have gone solo and are using predictable fees, because my clients also want predictable fees from whoever I refer them to or recommend.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, about kind of off normal, right? Attorneys always file, and we know that the rules don't really encourage attorneys to come up with some new way to bill, right? They just don't. There's certain, like for instance, if you're doing bankruptcy law, right? I mean, except for Chapter 13 or something, that you got flat rate fees now.
Right.
But anytime they're going to look at, they want you billing by the hour. They want you.
So as of July of 2023, Rule 1.5 was amended, at least in Illinois, and so they're trying. Like the Illinois Supreme Court is trying to find ways to encourage lawyers use alternative fees. And I even think there's a new comment to 1.5 that says something about don't feel restricted in how you can, bill your clients as long as it's within like the ethical rule, the ethics. And so now what they allow is if you charge a fixed fee, it could go directly into your operating account, but it cannot be non-refundable. Right, so if you don't do the work, you have to refund it, but it doesn't need to go in a trust fund account anymore, as a way to incentivize lawyers to use flat fees.
Well, that's been for some time that you can have that you can do a flat fee, because I've been working on flat fee for some time.
Yeah.
And although now I don't work on a flat fee, I'm a subscription attorney. I work on a subscription, and one of the reasons why, and is because in my line of work, the problem isn't solved in a finite time frame.
Right.
Because when you're fighting with the IRS, that fight might go on for 3, 4, 5 years, and there's other things that have to be done to stay in compliance and all of that. And I learned that what I learned was, when people are having tax problems, that's not the real problem, right? It's an issue, and you got to solve that. But there's other problems that are really causing that, and so I helped them try to overcome that problem too. And so I became a subscription attorney about 18 months, maybe 2 years ago. Yeah. And it has changed everything, just like it did when I went to a flat rate fee. I was never good at keeping time.
Oh yeah,
it's such a.
I've met few lawyers who are good at it and actually enjoy it.
Yeah, I've never met one like that.
I know.
And of course you can't, and it takes a lot of time. And courts have said you can't charge for figuring out what your bill is.
Right. And there are these trend reports for the industry, and they show that like I'm just making up numbers here, but it's like only 2 hours of the day are actually billed and collected on average for lawyers. And so these legal tech companies are like, let's help you actually capitalize and bill more hours. But sort of like the symptomatic thing you were just talking about with taxes, no. That's not like the problem that needs to be solved. It's lawyers clearly don't like billing time, and they're not good at it. So they should be doing it a different way. Like, that's what your report shows.
I agree with that. Because you hate to keep, every 1/10 of an hour or whatever it is. Some attorneys like to bill on 15 minutes, and some courts don't like to. They go to 10. So it's encouraging. But again, I'm a big advocate of alternative billing, because, and I always say, you go to the store and you buy a loaf of bread. You know what you're paying for the bread, right? You don't come to how hungry are you? What kind of sandwich are you going to make with that bread? And so the value. So it might change. I like the people should know what they're paying and what they're going to get for it.
Right, and even lawyers. I'll say stuff like that too, and lawyers will say, "Oh, well, legal services are not bread. Like, it's not some product." Well, first of all, you can productize legal services these days with automations, but that aside, it is complicated. Think about the logistical, everything that needs to go on in order to, there's a farmer and the seeds and the quantity and the seasons and then the transporting and the that whole line is so complicated.
I love it.
It's way more complicated than just how, what's the value of legal services.
I agree
yet they're still able to price.
One of my favorite is Milton Friedman talking about the eraser on the end of a pencil.
I don't know this one.
Oh, really? He just goes on and on about what does it take to put that eraser at the, who's involved in it? How many entities have to work together to make that happen? Yeah. It's incredible. Yeah. The economic background of everything that you look at. So bread, it's nice when you go and it's sliced now. It wasn't always sliced.
Right? Sliced now.
Well, we always hear, it's the best thing since sliced bread.
Television has color too.
Yes. Well, I'm saying we still say, it's the best thing since sliced bread, because it is, because sliced bread is pretty good, damn good, right?
It is, although you do know there are, like, if you go to the grocery stores these days, they have unsliced.
No, they have unsliced. They're going back to that.
It's cyclical because it's fresher if it's unsliced.
So they say, yes. At least they want you to know. But again, that's marketing and packaging and all that. But people want to know what they're paying for, and it takes the fear out. So sometimes it's not the price tag that. Don't get me wrong, high price tags are. But it's the not knowing, right? So I'm going to hire a lawyer, and you're going to say, how much is it going to cost? I don't know. How many hours is it going to take? We'll find out. It's like, where's that going to take me? It might be 10 grand. Then it turns out to be 30 grand. It's like, you told me 10 grand. No, I didn't say 10 grand. I said it might be 10 grand. Whatever.
Yeah, I've gotten some clients who have had prior counsel before, like, if they need to amend their estate plan or something, and it's just a simple amendment, like they're changing the names of their heirs or whoever's their successor trustee or something like that, like real simple stuff. So I'll ask them to send me all their engagement agreements and whatnot. And I've seen this for other practice areas too, but so they send me everything from that trust, and it sometimes includes the engagement agreement of the attorney. And they say we expect it to be X amount of hours, and if we go over, it's this more amount per hour, right? So I ask my clients, because I have attorney-client privilege, like, did it go that many hours or under, or did it go over? It's never gone under the estimate. Let me tell you, no lawyer goes under the estimate of estimated hours. So why not just think of the value of the legal services you're providing and tell your client that that's what it's going to cost? I agree with that. Then you're incentivized to not take a long time.
And again, so if I'm approached by somebody, and by helping them, the value to them might be $10,000, and so they pay me by the hour. I find out how to solve that problem. It costs $5,000. The next guy comes to me. His problem might be worth to him $100,000, but now I know how to fix the problem,
right?
And so now it's $1,000. So it doesn't seem right.
No,
that I'm paying the guy who really needs the help. I'm charging $1,000, but the guy who's really struggling, I got to pay $5,000. It doesn't make sense.
No, and most people will pay more to get something sooner
and know what it is.
Yeah.
And so you're getting faster service. It's worth more to him.
Yeah.
So
it's worth $10,000 now, and it's worth $1,000 a month from now.
Should attorneys charge on the value? I think, for sure, everybody should.
Yeah.
What's the value of what you give?
Right. Imagine going to Starbucks or a coffee shop and they can't tell you how much the cappuccino is because you have to see how long it takes for the barista to make the cappuccino. It's a different price every time.
Yeah,
right.
That's a very good analogy. Very good analogy. Again, it's important. And again, some people, they want to pay more. They feel better paying more. They feel like they're getting a higher quality person because they charge more. Doesn't mean you are, right? People are different. Everybody's different. Everybody has a reason why. And when I don't want to say that. If I get clients who want to pay more, I'm happy to accommodate. But I say, you want to tip me, you can tip me.
Well, it's the value that you're providing, is
yes.
I mean, it's kind of like the same thing. I just had somebody who had their catalytic converter cut out of their car down in the city. And they're sitting there going, well, somebody charged me $1,400, but I found a guy who do it for $750, which again, the price of catalytic converters, it's pretty good. All right, well, he goes and gets that done. The thing falls off in a week. So you kind of, it's kind of like you get what you pay for type deal.
That's always been.
You're running your business, and I think you say it yourself, Attorney Stephen Leahy. You have this golden goose egg that's starting to bring in you're starting to really bring in that dough, right? You're going to have this side operation starting to bring in some money. Well, don't you want to take care of that, protect that with all your life, and make sure that you're doing the right things, the right legal means, so that
I agree with that. And I tell people this all the time because that's who I help, right? I help business owners, and it's hard to find a business that you can make a profit on and make a living on, a good living. It's hard. And if you find something like that, you should protect it with everything. You should not put it at risk because you don't want to do the paperwork or you don't want to get advice or you don't want to. That is something you need to really protect. Again, because it's really hard to find a business that because everybody's different, to find one that will work for you and it can take care of you and your family and maybe a legacy. If you're lucky and your kids want to do what you do and all that other stuff. But here's something I talk about often. You should build your business to sell.
Oh yeah.
Right. Because if maybe your kids don't want to, but you should always build your business to sell. Have that in mind when you're going forward. That's why maybe it shouldn't be Joe Smith's auto repair, right? Because who are you going to sell to? There's not another Joe Smith, right? Right. Having a trade name, which law firms allow as well. They didn't always. Yeah,
you used to have our name in the firm. Although I'll tell you what, even like some clients do still want that. They still want a traditional sounding law firm.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, because I know you do both.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Because I have a company, the law office of Stephen A. Leahy, PC, professional corporation, and we have Open Tax Advocates. Incorporated.
It's going to be your hub.
Incorporated. So right. But it's all about, because I'm doing the same thing that I want my clients to do, and that's building to sell. And whether you sell or not is not really the issue. It's putting value into your business and making it valuable. And
the most valuable thing to sell is recurring revenue.
This is I 100% agree. 100% agree. And there's I don't know, did we talk about this?
We might have talked briefly about this.
So I'm a Russell Brunson guy, and Russell Brunson says, a couple nuggets that you can get just by listening. One of the nuggets is, you don't really have a business unless you have recurring business. Otherwise, you're just doing projects all the time. So as attorneys, right, it's the one and done model, which I work to, and almost every attorney, right? You go, and so you spend all this money to go find a client. The client comes in, you work with them, he's gone. You go spend more money to find another client, find somebody else new, and so you're always looking for a new project where recurring income, I can count on it. Right. And the guy's already bought something from me. He trusts me, and he's looking to buy more. And I know what he wants, and I can sell it to him. So you should sell it to him.
Yeah, and you can't be afraid to sell it to him if there's value for the client. Like, it's not just a one-way transaction.
No, I
it's
agree.
a two-way transaction.
You're doing them a good service by providing more, because it's hard to find someone you can trust.
Right. And I have to imagine this is, I never thought about it in the context of tax law, but it's probably similar. But like, one of the things that I try to recontextualize for my clients, because clients usually look at their attorneys as a cost center. Mm-hmm. It's just going to cost me money. But I say, when you offload your legal things to me, you can get back to what you enjoy in your life or your business. And if you're a business owner, that means do the things that makes your business money and stop worrying about the legal things. So by paying me to take care of your legal stuff, you could go make more money. And with taxes, I have to imagine it's a similar thing.
And that's, as tax planning, right? Because tax planning is a different, is not, I help people fix their tax problems if they owe the IRS money. Mm-hmm. But tax planning is a different animal. Most people, and I have a new short coming out here about, everybody wants to blame their CPA. My CPA, he just doesn't show me how to save money. And they don't realize that's not your CPA's job, right? His job is to take all the information that you have and convert it into something that's in the file format that the IRS asks them to put it into, and that's what they do. Right. But if you want a tax planning is not the same as filing your tax return. That your CPA isn't giving you that. Mm-hmm. And maybe, and I would say, right, maybe you can get the IRS to help you pay for your accounting services, because if you're doing good tax planning, you can save more in your taxes, and it'll more than pay for the services that you're getting. Right. That's the goal. Even if you break even, right, you're still saving money, and you're not worrying about it anymore.
Right.
So that's what. But so yeah, you're exactly right. That's exactly the way to think of things.
Yeah.
And again, all this marketing stuff that comes in, it's like, but because it makes sense, right? And I think we talked about this a little bit. And what does that do? That makes every client more valuable to you, because they're long term, and you're going to make more money on them over their course of your relationship. Right. So as my guy Dan Kennedy, and I talk a little bit about this with you, says, whoever can spend the most to get a new customer is the winner, right? Because I could spend a little bit more on my marketing to get the right person. They're worth more to me, because I'm gonna keep them for a long time. I think that's
who's
important.
really going to understand all this conversation?
Who?
Because is business owners.
Yes.
And people who are running their own business.
I agree with that.
And if you're running your own business, and if you need any tax help, right, I would go to Open Tax Advocates. But also, too, if I'm looking to I don't have an attorney, and all of a sudden I have this, this wonderful little side hustle that's really starting to bring me money. Well, I know that I'm going to be calling attorney Mathew Kerbis. Now, where are you based out of? Just because we're kind of running up here on time.
I think he's based on the internet.
I'm a virtual law firm.
Okay.
But licensed in Illinois, right? So there has to be some, as we like to say, nexus with Illinois. But if your transaction is taking place in Illinois, or you are a Illinois domiciled entity or person, and you're transacting somewhere else, I may be able to help you, right? Then I might be able to help you out. And it doesn't need to break the bank. Starting at only $20 a month and $50 a page, you could hire me to help you avoid your legal problem. And all you have to do is go to subscriptionattorney.com.
I did see that, and that's actually great, because you got multiple tiers, and again, it depends on the type of business. So again, if you're out there and you're hearing this and you have a business, or you're starting a side hustle, I'm looking myself to start a side hustle. I got a couple of things going on behind the scenes as well too. Where, when it starts making money, and because, Attorney Stephen Leahy says it perfect, and I pulled this from years of being on the show with you, Attorney Stephen Leahy, is that, you might be a good baker. I make this really good pie, but I don't know how to do anything else. I don't know how to make make the business, or I don't know how to legally formulate, and I can't even pronounce it, right? You hear me say, so I'm going to have trouble. And I know that I'm going to call either one of you guys.
And again, I'm a big fan of your model. I think it's a great model, because people need help. And how many subscriptions do people have for some service that they barely use? And yours would be so much more valuable and useful.
Even just to talk to a lawyer. I don't do free consultations. A lot of lawyers do free consultations, but it's only $20 a month, and it's month-to-month subscriptions. So sign up for $20, and if you don't like my advice, and if we don't get along, then either one of us could end the.
You're only down
attorney-client
$20.
relationship. That's it. And a lot of times is going back to the sales thing is like then that's my chance though to show them I can help them, and I offer other services. $20 a month only it gets you something, but it doesn't get you the whole kit and caboodle, right? And it's like the Costco model, though, because the one and done things that lawyers do, and sometimes things are just one and done. Real estate transaction, one and done, right? For example, I use the Costco model. In order to do business at Costco, you must first become a member of Costco. And so that's that $20 a month minimum subscription that gets you.
What do you call your members?
I'm still working on it because there should be something, right?
Yeah,
we're subscribers right now.
My members are freedom fighters.
Hey.
We're fighting because I
got the Rebel Alliance here.
Fightbacknow.com.
It's the island of Tortuga over here.
Fightbacknow.com. That's my website.
That's excellent.
So we fight the IRS, and and that seems to be my clientele. I know who they are. I've been doing this not long enough. I know who hires me.
You just gave me an idea, though. I'm not going to talk about it live because I'm not going to workshop like a live thing right now. We don't want to but your thing, I like that, and that just gave me an idea. We'll talk when we're off camera.
Good. I think that, and talking to other lawyers, because how many lawyers do you know that are subscription attorneys? There's not that many.
So like my podcast is Law Subscribed.
Well, you do that, so.
So I do know maybe like 50 something attorneys who do it, but still 1.3 million U.S. lawyers approximately, and like 50 to 100 lawyers.
I know you told me you don't really do it. They're not all Illinois people, are they?
No, it's frankly around the world.
Yeah.
I've had folks from Australia and the UK as well. Yeah, and you're going to come on my podcast.
I am going to come on your podcast because I'm a huge advocate of subscription services.
What's the name of your podcast?
For lawyers.
The podcast is Law Subscribed, and you can go to lawsubscribed.com if you're an attorney or you're in legal tech and you want to hear about how the future of law is going to be practiced.
That's awesome. And how can is that on like Spotify? Is that on all avenues?
Everywhere. It's everywhere that you could find a podcast. And but the best place to go is lawsubscribe.com, and that way you could get an email every time an episode goes live, and you could watch the video right there in a web browser, but any podcast app at Law Subscribed. And one other thing is I have a new podcast called the Law for Kids podcast. I don't know if we talked about this.
No, we didn't.
So I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, and she started to ask me questions about things that were kind of legal, and I thought, hey, I should start like a legal topics podcast for kids. Now, it's only 1 minute long each episode. It's on all the podcast apps.
I love it.
Same thing as my other podcast, Law Subscribed. You could go to lawforkidspodcast.com if you want emails whenever those episodes go live. And she does some voiceover for it. So she'll do
love it.
She'll ask the questions.
And that's a good niche, right? We all watch shorts now, right? Everybody watches shorts. And I always like to notice, because then you start seeing the same people doing the same thing, and I could talk about whatever.
Right.
But so you got to find that niche and get you, and then you can keep doing the same thing. So that's a very good idea. How many people want to see? Because all kids are asking these questions.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, look, most of my views are on Instagram Reels, just because I have a lot of family that share it on there, and it's got hundreds of views. It's got more views than some of my Law Subscribed episodes.
Good. Yeah, sure.
I mean, and I've only been doing it for a few months.
I know.
I've been doing Law Subscribed for 3 years.
That's a good. I think that's a good idea right there. Yeah.
We have your website up. Let's do it one more time. If I'm starting a business, or if I have this side hustle starting to take off, or if I'm really just asking for any legal advice whatsoever, where do I go?
You go to subscriptionattorney.com.
That's right. So again, we want to thank you so much for coming on. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, Opum Tax Advocates is the sponsor of this show. I'm going to let Attorney Leahy sign us off because this is his show.
Well, I have so much more I want to talk to Attorney Kerbis about, because we have so much in common. For an old guy like myself, it's but I think you're doing the right thing. I think you're on the edge, if there's such a thing, and there is, and I'm always looking for and again, you're working for yourself. You're out there, so that's business owners. I know you help business owners, and so I'd encourage everybody, to contact Attorney Kerbis and get on his list. $20 a month. I might go sign up. I tell you, I got so many subscriptions for 25. I wouldn't even miss it. Although my wife would say, "Who's this new guy? What, I got a new guy?" But again, I encourage everybody, go to subscriptionattorney.com, sign up. I love the subscription plan, and you have to, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know when you're going to need help. And that's why memberships, I think, are so important. You should as a business owner, you should always be learning, right? And as you pointed out, there's so many. You're always asking these legal questions. You don't even recognize them as legal questions,
right?
And so you need someone to kind of bounce this stuff off of. And I think that's a great idea. So thanks so much for being on the show. Is there something that you'd like to say before we leave?
Just thanks so much for having me.
Well,
I'm happy to come back. I live only 5 minutes away, so we'll come
We'd
back.
love to have you back.
We'll do it again, and my show is not. I don't record in person, but I look forward to having you on my podcast. Thank you, all the watchers, all the listeners, and if you only take away 2 words, I never know when I'm going to speak to an audience again. 2 words. It's context matters.
Yeah. Terrific.
That's awesome.
So thanks so much for joining us here today. I appreciate that.
And remember, ladies and gentlemen, Open Tax Advocates is there for you. Again, we want to thank Attorney Mathew Kerbis for coming on. Subscription Attorney, go to subscriptionattorney.com if you're interested. Also, to remember, if you have tax issues or if you have any other, what else do you do, Attorney Steve?
Nothing, just taxes.
Tax issues. Open Tax Advocates, 312-664-6649, or visit chicagotaxteam.com. It's going to be your hub. They'll fight the IRS. Well, again, thanks so much, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, share this video, like this video, tell all your friends, tell your family, your cousins, your uncles. You get the deal. Anyway, we'll be back next week for more great guests.
Who's on next week? Who's that?
I don't know.
Mitch Friedman.
Yes, that's right.
Mitch Friedman.
That's right.